Hello. It is the first time I am doing this on this channel and I realize I've never done it before. We're here for a Q&A. So I asked on Instagram for some questions that I can answer, mostly about Artist Alley, small business, and everything in between. First off, how much merch or merch variety should a beginner vendor have? I don't want to recommend a very specific number, mostly because it really depends on the type of product you have, the type of art style. However, just a general base, don't specifically just have this number, but usually I like to say as much as you can fill a 3-foot space. And I say that because most Artist Alley tables, at least here in the US, are typically 6 feet, right? And I don't want to tell people to have enough to fill a 6-foot space, especially if you're just starting out, with how Artist Alley is pretty expensive nowadays, especially if you've never done this before, you don't have money from other ventures like having a full-time job or part-time and whatnot. So I would recommend splitting a 6-foot table if you can, which is why I say 3 feet space. Usually it's like 50-50. So if you do have someone that you can split a table with and you're able to fill a 3-foot space, that would be perfect for you. I'm not going to give a particular quantity. It's up to you because someone with 11 by 17 prints will be able to fill up a 3-foot space versus myself, who mostly has smaller items like enamel pins, vinyl stickers, and so on. Within that 3-foot space, I would say if you can fit all of your products within 3 to 4 grid cubes, I would say 3 grid cubes so that the 4th one is just your signage, I would recommend that.
Before continuing, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Ana Luisa. If you watched my video from earlier this year, you know that I got the chance to try Ana Luisa's Toda silver earrings and ring in Celine silver. About 9 months later, I still wear them a couple times a week, and with proper care, the quality is just as good as when I got them. Ana Luisa does have a guide on how to care for their pieces and a 2-year warranty that covers tarnishing, water damage, and breakage. They have their biggest sale of the year going on until December 1st for Black Friday, so if you're looking for jewelry that is hypoallergenic, water resistant, and sustainable, consider Ana Luisa this holiday season.
Also, if you're new to my channel, hello, I am the artist and designer behind Mualcaina, a business focused on kawaii designs. I've been vending for over 4 years now, and I've done about 50 plus? Yeah. I don't know why there was a question mark there. I've done about 50 events. Some of my biggest ones are Anime Expo, SAC Anime, and Otakon. If you're interested in small business and Artist Alley content, as well as everything in between, consider subscribing to my channel. What inspired you to start doing Artist Alley? So back in 2020 was when I started this business. I actually didn't know anything about Artist Alley. I had never been to an anime convention. I'd never been to any convention that had an Artist Alley space. At the time, I had been going to VidCon for a couple years, but at the time it was mostly the typical 10 by 10 exhibitor booths and not necessarily work designed by artists. And it wasn't until 2021 or so that I was frequenting more Artist Alley pages, Artist Alley communities, and I discovered Chris Kaiko and Ashley of Light Spirit Designs. And I remember seeing their vlogs and how they used to vend in Artist Alley, and I thought that was such a fun thing to do and something that I really wanted to try. I was always very business oriented growing up. I've had multiple very tiny businesses, and being able to vend in person in an Artist Alley seemed like something that I would want to try, and so I thought, why not? I remember trying to vend at Anime Pasadena in 2021, did not get in. I think I just signed up really late because I know it's kind of first come, first serve-ish / juried. But I did not get into Anime Pasadena. However, I did get into Anime Los Angeles, which is why my first con ever was ALA of 2022. After that, this is now my full-time job, so pretty great. Do you make new products for each event in the same city? Not necessarily. I have played around with the idea of having exclusive items for particular events. One of my earliest examples was with my Otani stickers, where they are only available at my SoCal location. So you can get an Otani sticker at events in LA, SD, so on, as long as it's in Southern California. Back in February, I had an exclusive Valentine stickers for Anime Impulse Los Angeles because it was on Valentine's weekend. And I do want to do that, especially for KumoriCon, where it'll be my first time in Portland. I do want to have exclusive items there. Same thing with TwitchCon and other following events, but it is a little bit of extra work. Sometimes I need to think in advance, especially since I have to order said stickers or keychains. But another example of exclusive items are like stamp rally prizes. I don't have them available anywhere else besides that specific event. But I do want to do more of them. They're pretty fun. It's just a lot of work. How much should a new business be posting on social media and what kind of posts? Again, depends on what type of business you have, but in the case of a small business within the art sphere, or at least products that I typically do, which is enamel pins, vinyl stickers, and so on, and you're also vending in Artist Alley, if you are completely new to creating content, and I say this because I personally have experience creating content, like I've been making videos for almost 10 plus years at this point. So I do know how often to make content and how to make that much volume of content to be able to post every day. But if you're just starting out, I would say if you can at least have some type of post every other day. That might seem very daunting if you are not used to creating that much content and posting that much on social media, but don't feel pressured to just make reels or short form video. It can feel daunting to have videos like that frequently. However, if you have product photos, make a carousel. If you have small clips, maybe pair it with a trending audio. That's another video. It does not need to be very detail oriented. I mean, in my case, sometimes I just repost videos because they're still evergreen, so it doesn't really matter what's trending. But if you can, every other day, ideally every day, but I would not expect that out of most people just starting out. And usually your goal for creating content within your business might even just be making quantity, because the more posts that you are able to publish, that is more eyes that can potentially be interested in purchasing your products, wanting to follow you, wanting to engage with your content. And if you're just starting out, the main goal is to get as many eyes on your social media posts, on your account, and ultimately more eyes to be able to want to find your products at Artist Alley. Have you ever been in Artist Alley at a con outside of the US, and would you consider it? I would. Now that I've seen a few other artists who have vended outside of the US and they're from the United States, it gave me a bit of courage to consider it. A few of the ones that I have wanted to try at least once is Dokomi in Germany, SmashCon in Australia, and Fan Expo Toronto. I will say it's a bit difficult just because with the conversion of US dollar to whatever currency it is, and I know there are some rules that you have to consider. Like for some places, it might not be best to accept cash, and instead you have to take only card, which for other countries, maybe card is not the most common transaction. But I would consider it in the future, at least once. I think that would be fun. And at least for a lot of these conventions, I would mostly consider them to be vacation cons. Personally, with the amount that I can legally bring into said countries, I don't think I will be able to profit very well, especially with the type of merch that I sell. It would be different if I mostly sold prints, because then with prints, you could potentially just order them at said country. But in my case, there's a lot of logistics to consider when mailing out ETA bags and whatnot, but I would like to try them at least once. That'd be fun. When doing a show or a convention, do you pack a designated snack bag for work hours? Most of the time, I do. However, I have noticed I don't really snack that often unless it's a very long convention like Anime Expo. But most of the time, I just don't really eat because I know I'm going to have dinner later on. It also depends on how long the convention is. As mentioned, with AX, hours tend to be 8 to 9 hours. So then I know I am going to be hungry during that time, and I don't think I can wait until dinner. However, in the case of shorter conventions, maybe if it's 11 to 6, I also know that I have friends at conventions who can give me snacks, so it's not too big of a problem. But most of the time, even when I do pack maybe a couple Pepito, a couple P-Joy, I end up not eating it during con weekend, and then I just end up eating it on non-con weeks. However, for most people, I do recommend packing food when you can, because you never know if you come up in an emergency where you might need a little bit of sugar. Maybe you're not feeling well and you just need something to munch on, then you have some snacks on you. And especially con food tends to be more expensive and sometimes not that great personally. So I do recommend having some type of food. In the case of water, I always make sure I have water on me. Depending on the situation, and most time during the fall and winter seasons, I will always have hot water in my Hydro Flask just because I end up talking a lot and I do want to reduce the pain in my throat because I've been talking so much. But most of the time, I just make sure I have at least like 24 32 ounces of water on me because you need to stay hydrated. Please don't not drink water. It's very dangerous. Do you have a dream sponsor? Actually, yes. It's a little unconventional, maybe, but I would say that one of my dream sponsors would be conventions, if they would like to sponsor me. And in that case, it's like, oh, I guess this could be my pitch right now for a convention, but if you would like to consider sponsoring me, in that I will create content for your convention, maybe even commissions, and then I will be able to table at said convention. That would be great. Feel free to reach out, hello@mualcaina.com. Shopify versus Square point of sale. I've seen that many artists use both for their online and events. So personally, I use both. First one is that I use Shopify for my online sales. And then the second one is Square for my in-person point of sale. I have seen some people do one or the other in the case of having Shopify as their online platform and then Shopify as their point of sale, just so they can make sure that inventory is consistent on both sides, because the worst thing is that you oversell in person, but then someone else buys it online and now you're out. That's usually not the case for me, which is why I don't mind having separate POSs, but I also just went with Square because that is the standard one and the one that I saw a lot of other Artist Alley vendors use. But I have seen other POSs like Clover, I think just Clover. I haven't seen other ones, but those are the ones that I am more familiar with. It's really up to you. There isn't really one that I would recommend over the other, but Square is just one that I've seen most commonly used in person, and then Shopify online. How do you decide when to phase out a product? That is a question that I continue asking myself every time. Two questions. One, is it something that you are tired of seeing? Maybe not so much if it's popular, but if you just don't want to include it in your catalog, I would say discontinue it. Second, if it is not popular. In my case, one example are my Animal Crossing stickers. If you're an OG, you do remember. I had them from 2020 to 2023, and the reason I discontinued them was because they just were not as popular as they used to. Granted, at the time, Animal Crossing was just not as popular as back in 2020. And so after selling out the last of the stickers, I just decided not to restock them. However, if you are in the situation where you want to discontinue a product, I'm going to say like a certain pin design, and you still have a lot of stock, there's a few things that some people tend to do in order to go through all of them. One of them is by holding a sale. Maybe you have it at 30, 40, 50% off, even more, just so people are more incentivized to purchase said item because it is at a discount, especially a steep discount at that. The other way is to put them in mystery bags. A lot of people like to have highly discounted mystery bags, and usually it's of items that maybe they don't want to hold anymore. And so again, they are at a discount and people love to find out what they get later on. So those are some ways to go through some of your stock that you do want to discontinue at some point. Like, I know for myself, I do have a few items that I'd like to discontinue at some point. I just have not had a chance to go through my listings and discount them or put them in mystery bags. But it is a way to definitely help ease up on inventory and stock. This is a good question for starting out. How would you recommend looking for local to you artists for a table share at a festival? In this case, if I were in a situation where I would want to table share, not counting the people that I already know who are local to me, I would go on Discord. Personally, I'm on the Artist Alley Network Discord. There's a lot of events that you can check out in that channel and then see who is interested in table sharing with you. This also depends on whether you already have the table and or if you're looking for someone who is looking for table share, because those are two different things. But in the case that you do have the table already and you're interested in having someone else take up the other half of the spot, I would check on some Discords, especially if they're Artist Alley specific. I would also look into Facebook groups, especially if that event has it, and then maybe just post kind of like a solicitation showing that you are interested in finding someone to split that table with you, or even just post it on social media, and hopefully someone who is local to your area can split a table. If you have any more questions, comment them down below and I might answer them in the next video. If you're curious about my experience vending at a ribbon convention, watch this video to see my experience at Anime Los Angeles, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!